What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Bladen Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, in Matthew Sponhauer and Theo Ash. We have a great episode planned for you all today. Going to focus mostly on the NBA playoffs, but I do know that we're going to talk a little bit about the 49ers quarterback situation. It's kind of a mess right now. But before we get into that, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing today?
I'm good. I have not much on my plate where I'm like, I don't have to watch any prospects really. There's no NFL games. I watched a little bit of Panthers versus Falcons just to stay sharp. I watched like...
It's a tough one to sit through.
It's a tough one to see.
Your game to watch to stay sharp was Panthers versus Falcons?
Well, I wanted a game that I hadn't seen before. And I have no memory of this game whatsoever.
Probably for good reason.
No idea what happened. No idea what happens in this game. Cam rushed for a touchdown.
Hey,
this dude
Russell
from
Gage.
This past season.
Yeah, Russell Gage had some nice catches. You know, I felt more confident in my Jeremy Chin is overrated take after watching it. I was like, yeah, that guy. I remember that take. That guy's the Trayvon Diggs of safeties, man. That guy's not where he needs to be much of the time.
You're not thinking straight. You don't mean
I am
this.
thinking straight. I am thinking
you don't
straight.
Mean any of this, dude.
I do mean this. He is someone who blows assignments and is unsound in coverage, but because he's versatile, people think that he's really good and he puts up a lot of tackle numbers. That's my Jeremy Chin.
I might have to do some research and settle this debate.
He's yeah. I'll have to watch more of him. It's not even like I've really had a deep dive on Jeremy Chin.
Tonight we're all gonna be tweeting about Jeremy Chin.
Whenever I watch the Panthers, though, I'm always a little bit underwhelmed by Jeremy Chin. But anyway, I'm bored. Is basically how I'm doing. I'm bored.
Hi, bored. I'm Bladen. Nice to meet you, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. There's no NBA games tonight, so maybe I'm a little bit bored too. But not a ton going on. Weather is finally getting good. Finally getting like actually legit warm in Cincinnati.
It's rained 2 days in a row.
I don't hate rain. I like rain. I'm pro rain. But the next week it's supposed to be like high 70s, low 80s.
You're pro rain because you don't have to walk 20 minutes to class. That's why you're pro rain.
Exactly.
I would kill a man. I would kill a man for some rain right here in Phoenix. Right. It's been sunny without a cloud in the sky for like 5 straight months, and that's like good.
Basically every other day for the past 3 months. So
that's awesome.
Invest
in an umbrella.
I have an umbrella.
Invest in a raincoat.
It's just annoying. I'm just like, I can't wear any like half decent outfits because it's always raining.
Maybe that's on you. Maybe you should have more rain.
Invest in a more expensive. Outfits. Yeah, invest in a more expensive raincoat.
I just feel like I'm being attacked right now, and that's not okay. But you know what? Because it's raining, I need some good in my life, and what I need is for everyone to go subscribe to the YouTube channel, help grow the podcast. I just realized that like Richard Jefferson asked me like who my other favorite players were, and I didn't mention Trey Young.
Oh, that's your guy.
That's my guy. I just bought it. I should have like pulled out the Trey Young jersey and like threw it over the De'Aaron Fox jersey.
You choked under the Richard Jefferson pressure.
I really did. That's like my worst moment.
Much like the Warriors in 2016, Bladen choked when pressed by Richard Jefferson.
When pressed by Richard Jefferson. Well, the Warriors, if we want to talk about some basketball, Theo, I don't know if you want to talk about the 49ers before or after we talk about the NBA, but if we want to talk about basketball, the Warriors...
they choked under the pressure of the Memphis Grizzlies and Ja Morant.
Of Ja Morant, bro. Dude dropped 47.
Yeah, dude, man is good. And I thought it was funny to see Patrick Beverley tweet, he never put 47 on us. And then the tweet of that tweet hanging in the Timberwolves rafters.
I saw that retweet. It's like
that I retweeted. Okay.
I don't know, man.
But yeah, it's true. Like he himself has said he didn't love the way he played in the first series against the Timberwolves, but he's really turned it on against the Warriors here. And I think like some of that has to do with Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole being food. I know there was like that video of him just absolutely cooking Jordan Poole. Yeah. Klay Thompson is not what he once was, I think, defensively, and you're seeing him starting to get targeted a little bit because 2 major knee injuries at that age will, believe it or not, sap your lateral movement abilities, and Ja Morant is much better at moving quickly than Klay Thompson is at this point. So you're seeing some defensive matchups that they're able to exploit on the perimeter. And the Grizzlies obviously got a game off of it, so it'll be interesting to see.
Is there really a defensive matchup that you like if you're the Warriors? Like when it comes to Ja Morant?
I mean, there was one. There's any of like the top like 20 players. It's gonna be like, no, there's no one who you love against them, right?
Yeah.
But losing Gary Payton is really tough when you also have a Klay Thompson whose lateral quickness is not where, once was. And now also you need to give Jordan Poole big minutes. And it's like, dude, yeah, it's a lot less perimeter defense than you had like 3 years ago. You just lost your, one of your best perimeter defenders. You still have Wiggins, you still have Draymond. It's not a bad defense or anything. But there's a lot more ways to attack this Warriors defense. If you're going to put out a lineup of Poole and Curry and Klay Thompson, that's just not super strong anymore.
And when we're talking about Ja Morant,
right.
It's that's
and they're not going to be able to hang with him. And part of this is just they shot poorly. That there's some part to that, but Grizzlies defense is also at least somewhat to blame for the bad shooting.
Well, Theo, you're actually kind of a big Warriors fan right now. They're your finals pick. What do you think? What do you think their adjustments need? What adjustments do you think? I can't talk today. What adjustments do you think they need to make?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to adjustments, again, it comes down to shooting better, right? Like this is one of the worst shooting performances the like death lineup or the Steph Curry Warriors have ever had. So it's not like you lose a game and you've got to change what you do because they're the Warriors, right, and they've had a lot of success. If you've got Dylan Brooks suspended for the next game for his hit on Gary Trent, take advantage of a key role player being out and see if you can get a game there. It's like, I don't think we need to, if you can find ways to hide Klay, maybe you restrict his minutes a little more and you put other guys out there. Maybe you put, I don't know, Kuminga. I don't know who it would be, but maybe you try to hide some of these weaker defenders, or maybe you try to take a little bit off of Klay's plate and don't treat him like he's the Klay of old. But they're already kind of doing that. So I don't think that there's like major things that they need to totally adjust, or there's not a way that at least I can see that you can just stop Ja Morant from doing what he does. So yeah. I don't know.
You're also not going to get 47-point games every single night out of
right. So I think you just kind of got to trust your system and trust the process and trust that you're the Golden State Warriors and you can win this series by sticking to your guns. I don't think that this is a disaster for the Warriors. I don't think that there's a fatal flaw that the Grizzlies expose that needs to be fixed immediately. I think that they're going to come out and win game 3, and that's just kind of my take on it.
Matt, I think you put a tweet out a little bit ago talking about Ja Morant and how you think he's become a little bit overhated.
Yeah, people are too worked up over him. People are like, oh, they're mad. He's like confident and talking on Twitter and they see the quotes, but other players do that, or they're dancing, but other players do that. And then everyone's excuse for why they don't like him is like, oh, well, he's not backing it up, when that's obviously how well he plays doesn't affect whether or not people like that stuff nearly as much as people make it out to be. So to see him come out and drop 47 and be dominant, and he's been closing out games. Like, this is not the first game. He had one against Minnesota. I forget which one. Maybe game 5, where it was just like, okay, last few minutes here, it's just going to be the Ja Morant show, and he's going to close out the game. And he had like the last 8. This time he had like the last 15 for the Grizzlies, and it was just like, yep, he's just going to do everything. And I think with the Grizzlies, they're still really young. I think that's why they'll end up losing maybe to the Warriors, is that they are still a little a little young and they're not as experienced and they make dumb mistakes and they, pick up reckless flagrant twos that get Dylan Brooks suspended for game 3 and things like that. But seeing your star player, the guy who needs to be the guy, go and close out games like that and have games like this is a win, especially since you already have a series under your belt.
Yeah, and I've seen like the sentiment of like, oh, Ja Morant needs to be humbled, which I think is just a funny one. Like, why does he need to be humbled? So he doesn't tweet. He's still gonna tweet.
I've seen the same thing said about the Warriors and the Suns, and it's like, dude, one of them is making the finals. I'm afraid.
I don't know. I think about like a lot of other athletes that have that kind of moxie to them. Trae Young's a guy that comes to mind of just like
Eli Apple.
When he Eli Apple, and then he got cooked in the Super Bowl, and everyone's like, "See, he sucks," but he doesn't suck. It's just
Eli Apple had a pretty good run in the playoffs. He really did. He played well for he was a useful part of the Bengals in 2021. But I digress.
It just the bad performances just really stick out when you think about the amount that he was tweeting. Odell Beckham's another guy that comes to mind. That's an active Twitter user. Antonio Brown.
Lots of Twitter users don't like Twitter users. Don't like athletes use Twitter.
And they all have like their everyone has their opinion. I think Odell's funny on Twitter. He's talking about like he's gonna leak the Devo news.
I don't know what that was, man. That was Trolldell Beckham Jr. But yeah, it's a series that, I mean, Matt, I know that you had the Grizzlies winning this series. I think a lot of people had the Grizzlies as Western Conference Finals contenders. The Warriors looked a little bit weak to close out this regular season before kind of storming back in that first series to kind of remind everybody like, hey, you shouldn't have picked against us. But I mean, it wasn't that long ago where the Grizzlies were a very popular Western Conference Finals pick. It's 1-1 right now. They very well could win this series if they can play smart basketball and Ja can continue to do what he does. So I think it'll go down to the wire, this one, and I'm excited to see where it goes for sure.
Well, talking about other series that might come down to the wire, well, there's only one, and that's Bucks Celtics. But the other ones, Suns Mavericks up 2-0, 76ers Heat up 2-0. Theo, your Suns are
rolling.
They're up. They're dealing with Luka. I think in pretty decent fashion.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's been unstoppable. He's dropped 40-something points, 45 points game 1.
Yeah,
so that wasn't good.
And then 35 in game 2. But like when you think about,
they're dealing with him on defense. That's what they targeted Luka.
Yeah.
I mean, they were switching onto Luka in the second half. I mean, damn near every possession. Chris Paul was torching him, and that it was to the point where Luka's offense wasn't even making up for it. And Luka's not someone who's like this joke defensively, I want to say, like anymore, or in the regular season. I don't think he was like just totally horrible, but I mean, he was atrocious defensively in the second half of that game. And it let the Suns pull away and win that game. And Chris Paul was totally unstoppable. And there have been multiple times, at least in his son's tenure, where he's put the team on his back and carried them into games, and this was one of them. Crowder had another decent shooting game. Lots of fouls in this game. The refs had their fingerprints all over it, which was frustrating to watch. But I mean, I think the main takeaway is like, can Luka be a better defender? Like, he needs to be play better. Can the Suns continue to just target him and switch on him over and over and beat him? Because Luka's a little bit out of shape, I would say, for an NBA player, a little bit on the heavier side. Is he a Giannis? Is he in that type of shape? It's been a long season, right? And we're getting to the end. Right. Can Luka, I think defense is a lot of effort, and it's a lot of that. And I think that is fair to question. Is Luka in the peak tip-top shape where he can give it all on both ends of the court at this point in the season? And this is coming off the heels of me calling him I think he could be the best player in the world. You just can't guard him.
Well,
he's like Jokic
he's really unguardable. But I can't remember what other series we were talking about where it's you're totally fine letting this guy drop 40, drop 30. It was Jokic. We were talking about Jokic. We were you're cool letting Jokic put up 30 for different reasons. But with the Mavericks, it's like, yeah, okay, you want to go put up 30, cool. You're not going to have any energy on defense.
Right. It is what it is. I don't know. Luka, it's an inch right off the heels of me being like, man, Luka looks totally unstoppable. This could be it's like Jokic with more range and like more handles. Like, could that be the best player in the world? And then immediately after I sent that tweet, he just was fried chicken.
It's a mixed bag. I think a lot of it is, I mean, nobody is going to be able to play good defense and handle the offensive workload that Luka does. Even LeBron. And this, I've talked about this with Jokic and LeBron, and it's true with Luka too. When you ask a guy like, if Jalen Brunson's not going to play well, if Jalen Brunson's going to put up 9 points when we're talking about, a guy as a borderline max contract player, which I think Brunson's going to be at least over $20 million a year, you got to be doing more than that because it puts so much pressure on Luka. And he's not really that strong. Like, he's not a strong defender. And he maybe, the stamina stuff has definitely been a problem with him before. Understandably so. But the fact that, the Suns recognize that, they go and attack him on defense, which just probably wears him out more, which makes things harder, which makes it easier to attack him. There's just not enough firepower on the Mavs right now to beat the Suns. They're just like, it's not that much more complicated than that, I don't think. And it's tough to say, like, if so you're telling me if I put another good offensive player out there, it's going to help defensively Luka. It's like, yeah, I think putting less stress on Luka on one end of the floor is going to help on the other, because Luka is not this bad of a defender. We've seen him defend better than this. He's not, a Trey Young liability. So
don't talk about my boy.
I think that. And then you've got like Chris Paul's going to go play great, and then Devin Booker's going to go play great. Well, then what the hell are you going to do if you're the Mavericks?
Yeah, it is what it is with them. They're just not built like a championship team. I know they were a popular sleeper, and they beat the Mavs without Luka, which kind of made the hype train even bigger. But again, kind of the same, like what I said about the Jazz series is I really think the Wizards could have beat them in a series the way they were playing. I really think the Pistons could have given them 7. Like they were just so bad on the perimeter, and they were kicking it out to wide open shots. I mean, I know in one of the games, I can't remember which one, maybe 2 or 3, like they shot 17 uncontested threes. It's like, that is a structural problem with the Jazz more than anything, and they weren't doing anything fancy. They're just blowing by the perimeter defender, kicking it out. Like, the Jazz was not like a real series to me. It was just like a Jazz disaster class where it's like, yeah, any team in basketball could have exploited the Jazz and given them a lot of trouble. So to me, that series for the Mavericks was always a little, I don't want to say it's like, obviously they beat them. It's the Jazz were a good regular season team and all that, but like now you're getting into kind of the same deal where they just kind of have a fatal flaw, and it's the Suns. A team like the Suns are just a machine, well-oiled machine with no real major weaknesses, and they can just exploit it. It's full of basketball geniuses who can exploit it. And yeah, I'm not really seeing the Mavs making this a series. I really am not. So it is what it is.
Suns.
Yeah, they don't have this team is like really just not that crazy talented when compared to a team like the Suns. They don't have a ton of plus defenders. They don't have
ball handler,
especially if Brunson is not going to be playing his best, they're really screwed. And this is what a game looks like when Brunson.
They don't have a great number 2 option. They don't have a dominant big. They don't have like a ton. Like, they have pretty good depth, but it's not like, oh my God, crazy. There's a 6th man of the year coming off the bench.
So what do the Mavericks have to do to improve this offseason then?
It's really tough. It's really, really hard because the second option, usually the Mavericks almost got too good too quick, and Porzingis was supposed to be better is really what the problem was. And now it's like, I mean, the Dinwiddie-Bertans trade was good, but as far as their path to like getting a really strong defense, you can add pieces that way. Like, there's defensive role players are gettable, but like a serious second option, who on the team is going to grow into that role consistent enough to do it for a championship team? Maybe that's what you hope with Brunson, but he's not even guaranteed to come back. Outside of that, maybe a major trade. Levine would be cool. There's some options for them, but it's very, very tough to pick up a guy like that in free agency.
Is there anyone that you could move other than, of course, Luka?
They have a lot of movable pieces, but they don't necessarily have anything that's like
Do you have
they
anything
have
that's
a lot of
movable
options. I
and
just don't know if there's
eye-catching?
anything that's like, here's a young guy who obviously has that ceiling as like that type of player, or here is an amazing asset, or here is like a free agent and they have a bunch of cap space or whatever. They'll be in the running for a lot of free agents just because they have Luka, and who knows, all they have to do is convince one guy to sign there, and then they don't really have to give up that much back in a sign and trade. So that's probably the way that they do it. They need to convince like a Zach LaVine or a Bradley Beal or someone like that, you know, maybe not even this year, but going forward, which isn't impossible. And again, sign and trade, you don't have to give equal value, but it's definitely not easy.
I love the idea of pairing Luka with a dominant big. I think that they should be as aggressive as possible trying to do that and giving him someone, because it's like, who's their starting five right now? You got Dwight Powell, you got Maxi Kleber, you've got David Bertans. Like, their big men are kind of more stretch guys who can shoot. And it's like giving Luka, whose playmaking is fantastic, a dominant post guy that he can dump the ball into there anytime, or can really set like great screens and be a dominant pick and roll option. It's like, to me, that more than someone like Beal or even more than someone like LaVine could really unlock this team and take them to the next level. I would be extremely aggressive trying to pry Ayton out of Phoenix, trying to pry.
This is the tough part. The guy you're describing is DeAndre Ayton, and the Suns will be like, no, nope.
I don't want to give him to the Mavericks.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
They can. If Ayton wants a max, and they don't want to pay it, he's going to go to another team. But they certainly, as a restricted free agent, can be like, yeah, you can't go to our direct competition.
Right.
So that's got to be. I agree, though. A big like that, especially also having someone like that on defense, would be big time. But I just don't know.
To me, like someone like if even Gobert, who's not quite what I'm describing, but someone like that, or if Anthony Davis makes some calls like, hey, do you really think Lakers, do you really think this core is going to win you another championship with how banged up they've been? We'll give you like all these young pieces and draft picks and you can start a rebuild. Like, just call and see who's
Davis
out there.
Anthony Davis would be an interesting option.
It would be, I mean, they could be favorites to come out of the Luka and Anthony Davis could be ridiculous. So I don't know what they do. I think they do have to invest in more star power. They have to find some way to do it because they're not going to have these high draft picks. Maybe there's a free agent that hits the market, but it's pretty rare that there's just a straight up big NBA free agent that doesn't go through like the sign and trade process or get traded for draft pick. It's usually not like that in any free agency. Even NFL, it's pretty rare that there's just like a Josh Allen that's out there, you know. So it's usually like keep calling and see what's available, because to be a team that can win the finals, I think you need a second. The Dirk path, where it was like kind of Dirk is this main star and a bunch of role players around him, I don't think you can bank on that.
It's pretty rare. Although I guess if you're looking at it like that, dude, maybe Brunson's a good enough second option and you just get a bunch of really good defenders. Maybe that's the route that they need to go. They're like, we have a 1A, maybe the best offensive player in the world, if not one of them. Let's just go out and let's get a good enough defense, because right now they have a defense that works very hard. But when you're playing a team like the Suns, it's like, that's not enough. It ain't enough.
Yeah.
Devin Booker doesn't really care.
You need some freaks out there. You need some like athletic freaks, and I don't think they don't strike me as the most like athletic team out there in the world. And they need some athletes. They need some real athletes out there. They need some freaks. They need some crazy body types. They need Mikal Bridges with 7 foot whatever wingspan. Get some freaks. Get some rare body types to surround Luka with instead of just white guys.
You know who else could use a rare body type right now? The Philadelphia 76ers, as Joel Embiid is...
I thought you were going into an ad read right there. I'm like, how is he going to...
I thought you were going to... I thought you were going to talk about your dating life or something.
Yo.
The Sixers, I mean, we can talk about...
Hold on. Theo, do you know the kind of women that I date?
Do they have rare body types?
Matt, do you know the kind of women I date?
I have a good idea, but I don't know where you're going with this.
I'm just saying, like, rare body types is not the description that I would use.
You're talking sorority girl. Any sorority girls listening to the podcast, hit Bladen up if you think he's cute. He's going to say yes.
Yo, chill. No, I was actually talking to this one girl that ran a half marathon though. So like,
hey, that's a rare body type. What's her wingspan?
Yeah, she's like 5'3".
What are her combine numbers?
Lateral quickness.
Okay.
You think she can?
Yeah, what's her Muggsy Bogues? So is Muggsy Bogues. Okay. Embiid is a rare body type though that the
Sixers could use, and he is out for Game 3 officially.
Yeah, they're cooked. I'm afraid.
They're cooked. I'm afraid. Yeah, Embiid moment.
We talked about this so much much
this whole year. And just the year in general. We talked about this whenever we've talked about the 76ers and what they can do in the playoffs, where it's just like we have been on the train of like injury-prone players are going to get hurt. We talk about that a lot on this show, and it's not unfair.
And this one is the most bogus Embiid injury ever, dude. An orbital fracture, concussion, up 30 in the last game of closing out a series. That is brutal, dude.
Heartbreaking, man.
It is.
Heartbreaking.
It is. I don't know.
Embiid doesn't deserve this. Harden doesn't deserve this.
It sucks. And it's just on top of that, Harden, the lateral, like the burst. We talked about this last episode. Not there.
Yeah, Jefferson. We talked about this for a long time.
So I don't have a ton to say about it other than like this is a team. Again, the talent difference. It's like, sorry, dude, this team is missing their MVP candidate, and their second player is not performing because he's showing his age. And you can blame Doc Rivers will get a lot of blame for this. I do kind of agree. It's like what is he supposed to do?
Even Doc Rivers doesn't deserve this, man. Like,
yeah, I guess there's stuff like DeAndre Jordan's a terrible player, roster somebody else like that. I get, but man, I mean, Richard Jefferson was talking about this a lot. Like, yeah, it is. He can't come out and say it, but well, actually, that's not true. Doc Rivers has come out and defended his like resume in the past. He'll probably do it again where it's just cooked in it. It's the process Sixers here. I mean, it's tough to see kind of where they go from here because it's like Embiid's not getting.
Hopefully, Tyrese any younger gets better is what you hope. But
yeah, Maxey needs to be an all-star. You kind of gutted a lot of your role players for a guy like Harden, who, he is not someone who you can trust long term the way he's looking right now. Embiid is not getting any healthier, younger, or his that step, that like explosiveness is going to be gone in the next couple of years for him, most likely as well. So
he just can't stay on the court. Really, their problem was that they needed to win in 2019. I'm afraid that was their peak, and they lost to Toronto on a tough shot. And it's like, well.
Yeah, it really is sad.
I don't know. I don't know if there's a super great path for them moving forward. And with Harden, I don't know if the Sixers would blow it up. I don't mean to interrupt. They're not going to blow it up. But I guarantee
all I'm
you
saying
won't.
is Luka and Embiid would be
Embiid is untradeable.
No,
Embiid is untradeable. There's nothing to match.
Well, first of all, he wants to stay in Philly. I think he would want to stay in Philly.
I mean, this is. I don't want to break the hearts of any Philly fans listening. I'm not even suggesting that Philadelphia consider blowing it up. They won't. They shouldn't. They're not going to. But like, their path forward is not. It's really hard to have a good path forward in the NBA. Rarely is there a championship winning move to make. And for the 76ers, I think it's like Harden find second life or something, or they fill out their bench better. Maybe filling out the bench better and hoping for health is what you do. But I think they could.
Hoping for health,
it wouldn't be so bad, but it's tough. It's tough.
Hoping for health is
their window. It's a little bit like almost like a Green Bay Packers type situation where it's like the window's open a little bit, but it's kind of feels like the prime years to win a championship are largely behind them. So. Tough scene. As for the Heat, though, I mean,
they're going to win.
As for the Heat, though, they are going to win the series. They're going to go on to the Eastern Conference Finals. And I don't see any reasons why they can't make it out of the East at this point. Like, if you've got Jimmy Butler scoring like he's scoring right now, that answers your question is like, where's the offense going to come from? Where's the offense going to come from? All you heard all year about the Heat. Yeah, good regular season team. Who's going to close out playoff games for them? And I guess that's still like, Hero and Butler and Lowry maybe is not quite as good of an answer as Jason Tatum or Giannis or Middleton or Jaylen Brown or something like that. But I mean, it's good enough. And whoever wins the Celtics series, I think they beat the Celtics the last time they played, right? And the Bucks would be really tough, especially if Middleton was to come back. But again, I've said before, no one you'd rather have on Giannis than Bam Adebayo, most likely. That he is uniquely qualified to match up against him.
It's going to be an interesting series. I'd probably pick the Celtics over the Heat.
Milwaukee
would be interesting. Celtics, I
too.
like the Celtics matchup a little bit better.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see how the rest of the Celtics Bucks series looks before we make any calls on that. But it does look pretty good for the Heat.
That's
Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, that's a series that we can talk about real quick. Just because I don't think there's all that much to talk about. Like, this series is just a one seed going against a completely decimated 76ers team. Who's going to win? The Heat. Right. But like this series, I don't know who's coming out of this one. And all the other ones, like I suspect the Warriors will still beat the Grizzlies. I know the Suns will probably beat the Mavericks, and I'm very confident that this is the one where it's like I can't really get a read on who's winning this one. Obviously, one game that's kind of lopsided one way, the next lopsided the other. This is the one that is a little bit like it feels like the NFL equivalent of Chiefs versus Bills in the second round, where it's like this could very well be the two best teams in the Eastern Conference, and the winner of this one should probably be the favorite to come out of the whole thing, where it's like that much of a heavyweight fight. And yeah, I think it's definitely the most compelling series of the whole playoffs so far. Absolutely.
Yeah. I remember coming out of game one, I was like, well, the Celtics lost, but they just looked bad. And I feel like they didn't lose as badly as they looked on the court. But then it was like the other way around in game two, where the Bucks just looked totally out of sync. So now I'm just like totally at a loss. I don't know where.
I think it's a good way to put it. When you have Giannis on the court, there's going to be a right play to make always. A guy who draws that much defensive attention is going to give you something available. And it's just up to Milwaukee to do a good job of finding that. And it's tough when you don't have one of your best offensive players out there in Chris Middleton, right? So when it comes down to Giannis, he's got to pick when to be aggressive, You want to keep the defense honest. You want to keep that defensive attention on you, but you don't want to attack the wall when they build it, Like, you don't want to go into these contested layups. If they're putting two guys on you, you got to be able to pass out. Did a great job of that. Had a triple-double game one. Game two, not so much. There was a lot of layups, contested layups that were taken and they weren't converted. And I even think that's like he shot 1 for 11 in the first half. Even on bad layup attempts, Giannis is making more than that 99% of the time. So that doesn't help. It also doesn't help that when, what did the Bucks shoot from three this game? 5%.
Oh, I think it was 16% versus 46% is what it was.
Yeah, they shot 16.7%.
So if, maybe I could say the perimeter game not stepping up, and this is what we were worried about. You lose your best perimeter player. Now, all of a sudden, if the perimeter game doesn't step up, then Giannis feels like he has to force up shot. If he feels like he has to force up shots, then even, Giannis isn't going to make all of them, and that's what the Celtics want. There's also a few times, you get the Chris Middleton, Giannis pick and roll is a big part of the Bucks game, and when you're missing that, maybe there's some times where you make the wrong call on those pick and rolls because at the same time, it's like you want to choose when to pass out. You got to be aggressive, and if Giannis gets a one-on-one matchup, expose that every time. Make them give too much help to Giannis to open up everything else. So that's the whole goal. It also doesn't help that Jaylen Brown was playing out of his mind in the first half.
And I also think the X Factor is always the third best player in either team. That's always, whenever anybody asks for the X Factor, it's always going to be that. But it's Drew Holiday, right? Who's probably better suited to be the third best player on the team in the second, and very, very, very inconsistent offensively at this point. Not an efficient offensive weapon. I know he scored 25 game one. They won that game, but shot 8 for 20, which isn't horrible. 7 for 20 the next game, 1 for 6 from 3. And this was the story of him in the last playoff run as well. The Bucks were one of the worst 3-point shooting teams to win the finals in recent history. And a lot of that has to do with the Warriors being ridiculously good for such a long time. But like since the turn of the century, they were one of the worst 3-point shooting teams to win a finals. And you're probably going to see that again. If they're going to win it again, they're probably going to be the same way. They're probably not going to be a lights out 3-point shooting team, especially with Middleton out and Drew Holiday being the one as like the secondary offensive option. So they have to be completely dominant in the paint to win these series. They've got to be completely dominant from mid-range to win these series. And with Middleton out, it's hard to be that. And, it's hard to be that year in and year out. Last year they were. Last year they had, and it always takes a little bit of luck as well. Kevin Durant's big toe being on the line, it changes everything if that gets hit. Right. And, we'll see. But it's definitely not a unstoppable Bucks team by any stretch of the imagination, in my opinion. It's not Giannis's Bucks are not, to me, the same caliber as like LeBron's Cavs, where it's just kind of like, go write them in. It doesn't matter who they face.
LeBron's Cavs. I mean, you also talk about like LeBron is at that point in his career was a more complete player than Giannis is right now. LeBron was shooting from 3 at a LeBron's more complete than anybody in NBA history. So it's a little bit of an unfair comparison to make. But I don't know. The Bucks definitely looked beatable game 2. They looked great game 1, and the Celtics, like looking at it from the Celtics point of view, you're glad to see. You love to see the mental toughness of Jaylen Brown to bounce back from a game where he played horribly, right, in game 1, and having a great game 2. A lot of times with Jaylen Brown's a star, right? He's a second star, but sometimes you'll see bad games turn into bad series from a lot of guys, and that's not going to be the case with Brown already. You saw that bad game just turn into a bad game, and it didn't. He found ways to work around whatever they were throwing at him. And you love to see that kind of problem solving and mental toughness from a star like that in Jaylen Brown. It's absolutely crucial. So love to see that if you're a Celtics fan. Yeah, I do think the Celtics have really kind of come around. But you know what else is coming around?
Fantasy football season?
Not just fantasy football season, but also
gambling. Season.
Theo likes to put his money on the line a little bit, and that's why we love our good friends over at PrizePicks, where they make daily fantasy easy, because PrizePicks offers more NBA props than any other DFS operator and offers every player and stat category you can possibly think of. You pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry, and it's just you versus the projected numbers. And PrizePicks allows mixed sport entries. So, for example, you can take the over on give me an NBA or an MLB player.
I don't know who you've named and who you haven't.
I don't.
You've named Judge. How about you go with Byron Buxton?
Okay. For example, you can take the over on Byron Buxton and combine it with the under on Ja Morant. And users that deposit and use our promo code will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Just be sure to use the promo code STAYHOT. So don't hesitate. Check out prizepicks.com and use the promo code STAYHOT, or go to your app store and download the PrizePicks apps today, where they make daily fantasy easy. Theo, I don't know who that is, that MLB. What was it? Byron Buxton?
Byron Buxton, he plays for the Twins. He rocks. He's very fast. And he's an outfielder.
All right.
Yeah, that's about all I know about him.
Plays for the Twins. Well, should we talk about the 49ers quarterback situation? Theo, you have some news about Trey Lance.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that it's an interesting... it's always, this whole offseason, it's been like, oh, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be a quarterback domino that's available. It's going to fall, and someone's going to get a capable starter. It hasn't happened yet. It didn't happen last year. Lance never really beat out Garoppolo to win the job, and Garoppolo is not exactly the toughest competition. And then the report today that the 49ers have been continually underwhelmed by Trey Lance, coming out from, I think, what's his name? Michael not Garoppolo.
Can you retweet it? Or
I will figure it out. But at any rate, like, to me, the dialogue around Trey Lance is super weird, and I can't remember seeing much about it, like, or much like this in their career. To me, he is being penalized and written off for sitting a year in a way that Mahomes wasn't, in a way that maybe Rodgers was at the time, or Brady or Breeze. But a lot of the best quarterbacks from this era have sat a year. And so many people are freaking out that he didn't beat out Garoppolo. But again, the 49ers were successful with Garoppolo the entire time, and from the very beginning, as soon as they drafted Trey Lance, they were like, we are going to sit him a year. We don't think he's ready, which makes sense considering he is probably the most inexperienced high draft pick quarterback of all time, like with one basic year of playing the quarterback position at NDSU. So, it makes some sense. And again, it's like this panic if he's ready or not, or if he's good or not. And it's like, he played pretty well when he was in last year. Like, we saw the results. He didn't look like amazing, but he looked better than Zach Wilson, or as good as Zach Wilson. He looked as good or better than Trevor Lawrence. It's like, I don't get it. I don't get why so many people seem so low on him. I don't really buy this news that the 49ers are like underwhelmed by him, when that's a front office that is notoriously like smoke screening people, and everyone thought they were taking Mac Jones, and even like plugged in people were getting that wrong. So it's like, I just don't know if I believe any of the like Trey Lance slander that I've been seeing. I
remember when the Mac Jones, they were like, because everyone was saying that Kyle Shanahan loved Mac Jones. That was Kyle Shanahan's guy, but everyone else wanted Jimmy Garoppolo, or not Trey Lance. So that's who they took. It wouldn't shock me if like Shanahan was like, I'm just not feeling this dude.
Shannon's a grumpy guy too. Like, he was low on Ayuk, right? Underwhelmed by what we've seen from him in practice. We're going to keep him on the bench. We're not going to play him for the first half of the season. And then once he gets out there, he looks great. And he looked great his rookie year as well. Yeah. And he was just like, well, maybe he was just good I'm willing to bet that Ayuk would have looked good if he played at the beginning of the season, because he's looked good whenever we've seen him, and he was a first-round pick.
Expectations are just so fucking high.
I think it's a similar thing with Trey Lance, where it's like Shanahan maybe he's being grumpy, maybe he's in a doghouse, but we've seen before that just because you're in Shanahan's doghouse doesn't mean you're this bad player. I kind of think that's where I'm at with Garoppolo, and if you're in Shanahan's doghouse, like whatever, he just kind of seems like a really specific or picky coach. Yeah. I don't know.
It's definitely like with Trey Lance, I keep mixing up the name with Jimmy Garoppolo. I thought he would have been gone by now. I thought there were a number of teams that would have made a move for him.
But it doesn't make sense. All the quarterback spots have been filled.
Yeah.
When does it make more sense to trade him? Right now, or week 3 when a starting quarterback tears their ACL? Like, to me,
and what? Okay, so this contending team decided that Garoppolo wasn't good enough to contend with. So what team is gonna make the big move?
My thought was like, okay, if you're looking for a bridge quarterback, Garoppolo's probably your guy.
Maybe, but I don't know. I think the whole thing with bridge quarterbacks is if they aren't good enough to securely be the starter and undebatably be the starter, they aren't really bridge quarterbacks. I think that's probably maybe slightly the difference between this situation and a Mahomes. Alex Smith is better than Jimmy Garoppolo. It's like, why didn't Rodgers start right away? Well, because there's a Hall of Famer in front of him who's still playing at a high level.
Right.
There's not a team that makes sense for Garoppolo. Like, you can say, the Colts that's where everyone thought, but they got Matt Ryan, who's better than him. Maybe a team like Washington. Well, they went with Carson Wentz, who is, I think, probably better than him. I'm not a big Carson Wentz guy, but I'm not a big Garoppolo guy either. The only team that I think made sense was maybe Carolina, but Carolina didn't have any like day 2 picks, and like it would be tough to convince them to part with any of those when they're just getting another mid quarterback who might get everybody there fired instead. Like, it's a really tough sell to be like, I'm giving up what few draft picks we have for a guy who can't win us the games we need to win to keep our jobs. We'd rather maybe reset our clock with a rookie quarterback and give us maybe some time. So there's just not a team that like of all the quarterbacks that moved around, maybe you go Seattle. But Seattle's seen firsthand how bad Garoppolo is. They beat the 49ers all the time. They beat up on the 49ers. Yeah. They don't want him. So it's like there's not a team to me that's like, oh, wow, like why is the market? Why haven't they accepted a trade for Garoppolo? They probably haven't had any good offers because no one needs him. He's not good. He doesn't read the field well. He makes silly mistakes. He's not super accurate. He has questionable pocket presence, and he has you don't trust him at the end of games. And it's like, he's just not a very useful starter. He can perform a very, very, very easy on the quarterback type of system like the one Shanahan does. And he can put up good EPA numbers that might make you think he's underrated, but I'm telling you, he's not. And again, I think it's a little bit of a smokescreen by the 49ers. And I think that, everything kind of is in character for what they do.
If you take the quarterback ranking quiz at Bladen.com and you get to Garoppolo, for most guys,
he's not there.
Oh yeah, he's not there. That's right. Ranking. For good reason.
Because we were rejecting Lance to be the starter.
Bladen quarterback ranking quiz. How can he be expected to be a starter in the NFL?
Yeah, I put Trey Lance on there and over him because Lance should be the projected starter.
You would think. When we made the quiz, we were projecting a Lance start, and I think that I still am.
I'm standing by that for now. I don't know. I'm working on a new iteration of that. I'm gonna have consensus rankings out soon.
Okay.
I think with the camp stuff, you always got to keep in mind, like, remember when Garoppolo threw like 9 interceptions in a row in training camp or whatever?
Yeah, that's the other thing. Lance was lighting up training camp according to like the beat reporters that were there. They're like, oh my God, like Garoppolo is sucking and Lance is looking great. Like that was the story at training camp. And then we saw the footage that got released to Trey Lance. Sidearm, like whipping it around guys, looking fantastic.
Yeah.
And then he goes in and plays. And I mean, he won a game as a starter. He didn't put up crazy numbers or crazy completion percentage, but he 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, I think, something like that. Hey. Didn't take a lot of sacks, only had like 4.
He's also, like, he's also like our age. Like he might be younger than me. So, no, he's not younger than me, but he might be younger than.
I was about to say, I'm pretty sure he's 20.
Yeah, so I mean, it's. I'm looking at this John Lynch interview from a few days ago where he's like, he's everything we wanted him to be. So it's, I don't know. I'm taking everything with a grain. There's got to talk about something. So maybe I'll make something up.
Maybe I'll make something up. I don't know. And you hear like Kittle talk about him. He's like, oh my God, this kid is special. So, I mean, I know that. Of course, you're going to publicly go out and support your guy, even if you don't feel like he's actually that dude, unless you're Mike Zimmer. You're probably going to come out and publicly support your guy. So I do kind of take those quotes. But like, again, I just don't think it makes sense at this point to like how you could possibly be underwhelmed with Trey Lance from what you've seen. We just haven't seen a lot of him unless he just stinks it up in practice every day. But it's tough for me to get on board with that when people who were there watching training camp last year was like, this dude rocks, and he didn't look that bad. He didn't look like completely out of his depth when he started. He didn't look great, but most rookies don't look great, and most, like a lot of the top quarterbacks in the league right now.
Unless, Shanahan expected him to just come out the gate and be an MVP.
Yeah, most guys who are started like didn't look great or didn't even start their rookie year. Rodgers didn't start his rookie year. Burrow really did not like look like this world-beating quarterback like immediately out the gate out of his rookie season. I mean, within the first 2 years, yeah, but like
even Lamar. I mean, he was 6.
Lamar sat his rookie year most of the time.
Then he came in, he was like 6-1. But even then, his completion percentage wasn't great.
Yeah, Lamar didn't look like an MVP, and then he came out the next year and won MVP. Josh Allen didn't look good. So I would say, like, in most cases, you can tell, like, within the first 2 years, like, if someone's good or not. But, like, there's plenty of quarterbacks who have not been, like, oh, my God, he's that guy immediately right off the bat, especially a guy like Trey Lance, who was at NDSU playing quarterback for one season where, might I remind you, he did not turn the football over. Like ever in his first year of playing quarterback. I don't know. He's good. To me, he's good. I'm still optimistic about him. And these reports, I'm meeting with a heavy raised eyebrow. Like, I mean, I'm hitting him with the Dwayne The Rock Johnson, like tilt my head and raise the eye towards the guy with the big Vine boom sound. That's how I react to all the Trey Lance news that I've heard.
Well, I think that's pretty fair. Matt, do you have anything else? Or should I?
I don't.
Should I send everyone home? I think I'm going to send everyone home. All right. Well, thank you all for tuning into the Stay Hot podcast. As always, tons of content coming away on all platforms. We will be back Monday. Talk more about the NBA playoffs. If some NFL news happens, we'll touch on it. But it's going to be mostly just like throwing shit in the air, you know. We do have. I think we're bringing Bengal back.
Hopefully,
I think we're
that on the works.
We're working on bringing Bengal back. We're gonna like talk through the NFL offseason, like officially, just kind of put a bow on it. But until then, we'll let you guys know when that's coming. Until then, don't miss out on all the great content coming on all platforms. As always, from Corn Boy, Bird Boy, and Lemon Boy, we will catch you all on the flippity flop.